अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाह। डॉक्टर साहब जब मैं आया हूँ तो
Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Huzur is saying to Dr. Sahib that when I came in, you were having a little laugh. What was it? Was it a joke? Dr. Sahib said that it was the instruction that the way you sit, make sure your caps are not caught in front of the camera. Huzur said, probably they must have said, only the caps must not be showing. So now it is verse 13 of Surah An-Nisaa.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولكم نصف ما ترك أزواجكم إن لم يكن لهن ولد فإن كان لهن ولد فلكم الربع مما تركن من بعد وصية يوصين بها أو دين ولهن الربع مما تركتم إن لم يكن لكم ولد فإن كان لكم ولد فلهن الثمن مما تركتم من بعد وصية توصون بها أو دين وإن كان رجل يورث كلالة أو امرأة وله أخ أو أخت فلكل واحد منهما السدس فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك فهم شركاء في الثلث من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله والله عليم حليم.
Huzur is saying, so how much had we covered in the last dars?
अच्छा ठीक है।
Huzur said, this is verse 13 of Surah An-Nisaa, and I had read the translation first time as well that we did at the last dars, but we will repeat that as we're going to comment on it. Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. In this verse, Allah the Almighty says, and you shall have half of that which your wives leave, if they have no child. Huzur says here, walad means the offspring, the child. So Allah the Almighty says, but if they have a child, that is the wives who have been deceased, if they have a child, then you shall have a fourth of that which they leave after the payment of any bequests that they may have bequeathed or of any debt which needed settlement. And they shall have a fourth of that which you leave. If you have no child, but if you have a child, then they shall have an eighth of that which you leave after the payment of any bequests you may have bequeathed or of debt. And if there be a man or a woman who is in this description, the word kalala is mentioned here. So there are two meanings, that a man who is in a state of being kalala, that he becomes the inheritor. Even then it will apply. But Huzur says, I have previously mentioned this, that there are various other pointers because of which I had rejected that thought. And here the kalala refers to a person who has no one above him or below him, that is, no parents and no offspring. If a person dies who is kalala, or if this is a woman Now here, the word vimratun, that it has been turned to the man, because sometimes it is used as a reminder. The pattern to remember is that in the Holy Quran, when directives are given, except if somebody is given acceptance, men are being addressed, and in that women are included, except a point where it is specially for women, and then they could not be included where the subject is addressing the men, because that is an address specifically for women. Then there is no ambiguity. So when there are directives, then women are equally addressed, and time to time there is a reminder. So here it is then said, Amimraatun, that even if it is a woman who's a kalala, who hasn't got anyone in the form of parents or children, walahu akhun ukhtun, that this man, if he has a brother or a sister, Huzur says, so apparently this is a man being mentioned, and the clarification says that even if it is a woman, the same will apply to her. So, like in English, by the usage of the word one, and in that a man or a woman both would be applicable. Similarly, in Arabic, a reference used for men in a directive is something in which women are also addressed. Nowadays, there is this debate that instead of saying chairman, one should say chairperson. While this is not something only in Arabic, when it is said man, or when it is said mankind, then women are not taken out of that description. So, similar form of address is here. Otherwise, every time it would have been necessary to also say women. So whenever men are addressed, it is women included. So Allah the Almighty says that if there be a man or a woman whose heritage is to be divided, and he or she has neither parent nor child, and he or she has a brother or a sister, then each one of them shall have a sixth. Now, whether it is a man or a woman, they will get a sixth. If they are siblings, they will get a sixth. And then Allah the Almighty says, فَإِنْ كَانُوا أَكْثَرَ مِنْ ذَلِكَ فَهُمْ شُرَكَاءُ فِي الثُّلُثِ مِنْ بَعْدِ وَصِيَّةٍ يُوصَى بِهَا. Or then, that if they be more than that, more than one sibling, then they shall be equal sharers in 1/3 after the payment of any bequests. In any case, they will not get more than 1/3. Whether it is a man or a woman, they die in a state that the parents are not there and there are no inheritors like children. And in that case, if they have brothers and sisters, then they will get 1/3 of the total inheritance. If they are two, then they will get 1/6 each. But if they are more, then out of the 1/3, however many shares there be, they will get that, no more than 1/3. And this will be done after the payment of any bequests which may have been bequeathed or of debt. And then Allah the Almighty says, غَيْرَ مُضَارٍ. Here there is the cause of suffering for anyone. This is an injunction from Allah, and Allah is all-knowing, forbearing. Here you should remember at this point that the word ghayra mudar, which Allah the Almighty has used, after a divorce or something, if the children are handed over, some responsibilities are placed on the man, some responsibilities are placed on the woman. There as well, the word ghayra mudar is used. So what it means is that in a situation where there are possibilities, there are risks of implementing something with harshness or with gentility, then always adopt gentility, because Allah the Almighty here does not aim for anyone to have any suffering, and no husband can bring in a condition in which, according to the qadha, the man wanted to make the other party suffer, where the indications are that he is putting those points in place where it will cause suffering. Allah the Almighty has directed here that that is not to be allowed. Anything which can cause suffering, that is in the rights that were given, in that there should not be the element of making allowances where any suffering is dished out to the other party. Neither the man can do that, nor the woman can do that, even if the woman is taking all the rights, but then the qadha can see that the woman is trying to create suffering for the man, then the qadha can limit her demands to this, that we will only allow you up to this point, because that would be against the directives of Allah the Almighty. Now again, in this case of inheritance, against this word ghayra mudar is used. So this may also be applicable to the entire will, or also to any particular part. That if here, so look at it specifically, that if it's only the brothers and sisters, then they will get 1/3, and that will be distributed amongst them. Now the question is that if there is no sister, for example, and there is no will, and the inheritance is there, can they be given some extras? Now as a right they will get 1/3, but then can they be treated, if they are poor, can they be given some more? Then any benefits they can be given out of what is left. If they are needy, if they are poor, there is the part of the lump sum left. So remember that it is not that to make them in difficulty, put them into difficulty, that this directive is given. It is being made clear here that maybe that person who was dying might make a will in the favor of the faith, and he can make that up to the point of 2/3, because 1/3 is specified by the law of Allah the Almighty, that they will be given 1/3. So here the 2/3 which is left, if there is no debts to settle, but there is a will, and if that is given to a person, he cannot give more than 1/3, and if he gives it for the good of the religion or good of mankind, in my estimation, Huzur says it is allowed. There is no restriction that the person can give to faith 2/3, where the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said you must not give the entire property that was because of some specific reasons, and where the Holy Prophet ﷺ accepted the offering. If that had any limitations placed by Allah the Almighty, He would not have accepted it. So, where you give to the faith, it is not limited to 1/3. But if it affects other people, and especially the situation of mudar, suffering is created, then it is essential to restrict yourself. So, the promised Messiah ﷺ had said that you have the permission to give up to 1/3, no more. There were probably two elements that he kept in view. One was that this is something that 1/3 you are allowed to give by your own hand, to whatever reason, to whatever cause. So this is the right of a person, so that can be done for the case of faith. Excuse me. So the Promised Messiah ﷺ limited that to 1/3. If that was not the case, then in the future, then the organization of the Jamaat would have had to keep in view that has the person given more than 1/3 and the children are badly affected, or because of that the children are losing faith. So those things which are against the natural instincts, they are also damaging. That is why the promised Messiah ﷺ did not give permission in making the will that you can give more than 1/3. He said, this is where you have to restrict yourself. The maximum is 1/3. So that shows that the 2/3 will fulfill the rights of the offspring and relatives where they will not suffer. But the Holy Prophet ﷺ himself said that whatever he had left behind will be a sadaqah in entirety. Not that he had used some special right for himself, or that he is depriving his heirs, which would have been definitely given to them. This we will discuss where it will become applicable, and we will look at that. The fact is that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, in his life, when he got wealth from Hazrat Khadija, which was a large sum, he did not keep a single penny, although that was personal. So for the scholars to say that the Holy Prophet ﷺ did not think of that as his personal property, which as the orchards of Fidak or others. So if he did not think of them as personal, then for his wives and for his heirs, why did he say that they are not to be given the rights of ownership, but their financial position is to be secured and they need to be looked after? So you have to then decide that was it a sadaqah, like it is said in a hadith that it was sadaqah. So that wealth, that finance, was it sadaqah? That is why he said he was not going to touch it. If it was sadaqah, then how did he use it himself, and how did he allow his children to use it, while the fatwa is that there was to be nothing of sadaqah to be spent on the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So if that is the meaning of sadaqah taken as the scholars think, that that property was sadaqah, that is why the Holy Prophet ﷺ did not have the right of any kind on that property. Imam Sahib said, Huzur says that this is totally wrong, and it is an affront to say that, because this was the right. This was the right given by Allah the Almighty, and so it can be used. Hazrat Khadija Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anha gave her wealth and property, and the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave that all away, because this was his own high dignity, his glory, and he kept it in view that what people think is hiba, that he gave that as a gift, like in the garden, the orchard of Fidak. Huzur says we will discuss it when we come to that, but here, if it was a hiba, if it was a gift, then he had thought of it as his own, only then he had made it into a gift. But all the scholars are agreed that this is considered full as a gift, that you give it to the other person and they can then use it as they have full authority. Otherwise, this hiba would not be taken as legal. About Hazrat Fatima Radhiyallahu anha, this has been researched. The Shias also don't say anything against it, that the orchard of Fidak was not given in the mastery, in the ownership of Hazrat Fatima Radhiyallahu anha. So the resolve for this is that the Holy Prophet ﷺ said that whatever is gained from it, you can use it. So this is a very important factor. This would be against the dignity of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that even after giving a gift, then to take it back. So this final verdict, that out of all property, no heir, no wife will have anything, but they will have just the benefits of that property. They will not have the ownership. So the next point of discussion is that in totality, when all the property is given to the faith, then does not go into this description of Ghaira Mudar. As a point to remember is that where the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave away all the property that was given to him as a gift by Hazrat Khadija, the Holy Prophet ﷺ deprived his own self by giving all that away. But as a will for the children or the wives, to deprive them of the inheritance about which Allah the Almighty has said, Faridatam min Allah, that this is essential as a directive from Allah the Almighty, then somebody can raise the question that was it then proper for the Holy Prophet ﷺ to have deprived his wives and children? Was he above this law? While wherever there is an exception, then that verse of the Holy Quran backs it up and openly it verifies that directive, that this is specific for the Holy Prophet ﷺ and doesn't apply to others. With regards to inheritance, that is not the case. Now, because a lot of our scholars have been tangled in debates with the Shias, they just kept on debating these points, and these debates. In my estimation, Huzur says that hiba, which is a gift, the Holy Prophet ﷺ had accepted that with the condition that I will draw the benefit from it, and my children and my sons-in-law, they can benefit from it, but I will not take on the ownership. So when a person has accepted this gift with these conditions, he has then specified, like for example, somebody says, I'm giving you this, you say, okay, but I will only use it for a few days, and after that I will return it to you. That happens many a time. It has happened to me as well, and everyone might have had that experience, that you say, okay, I will use that for a while, and then I'll return it. Now this returning, this is between the Holy Prophet ﷺ and Allah the Almighty. There was no necessity of any other witness, because the greatest of the witnesses was the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and his will shows that in his life as well. The Holy Prophet ﷺ did not devour it as sadaqah. He just used it as a gift given to him, and he said that that gift part was to be passed on to the children, and what he did not accept as sadaqah, that was to go back. Because in life, if it is done that way, with that intention, with those conditions, therefore it does not apply to the, or this does not apply to the inheritance. Because if a person accepts a gift and then gives it as a sadaqah, but he had accepted it with the condition that I will only use it, but I will not take on the mastery of it, so I want to give it as sadaqah. So this point would be against the principles of inheritance, Huzur says, especially in the background that I have mentioned. This is a practice of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and for him to understand this, that this was granted to me by Allah, and I can use it as much as I like, and it's up to me that how much and up to what time I want to use it. This is how the Holy Prophet ﷺ understood it, and in people's lives you have that experience. Many a time people send me gifts which I feel that I must not accept, so I request them that if you allow me, we will give it as sadaqah. You will also be included in that, so that your gift is not rejected, and you and me, we can spend it for this good cause, and they accept it happily. And sometimes I get letters with regards to that. It is to be noted down. But then who is there between the Holy Prophet ﷺ and God? So Huzur says that these are things which need to be understood in this light. Otherwise you would not have faith in the directives of Allah the Almighty. So whatever debate you need to undertake with the Shias, but you must need to understand that what actually happened. So Huzur says that I take it in this way, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ did not think of it as sadaqah. If he had thought that it was sadaqah, he would not have used it for himself. And then our scholars have picked this point to quieten the Shias. They said that the Holy Prophet ﷺ was an Amin, a trustee, so he could not have become the owner of it. Now this is a lie, Huzur says. I'm not saying that the scholars were lying. What I'm saying is that this assumption of theirs was a lie. Because if the Holy Prophet ﷺ was a trustee, then how could he use it himself? Then it would be as if everything becomes a curse. So whatever rights Holy Prophet ﷺ could give to people, did he take them back? That you draw the benefit and after that, like I'm doing, we are benefiting as trustees, all the poor people, all the migrants. When you will die, then we will take it back. Was that the case? So whatever gift they had received, it was given to them through the Holy Prophet ﷺ by Allah the Almighty. So they had the right to either accept it or accept it partly. The Holy Prophet ﷺ also had the authority. There was a difference in the personality. Whatever gifts their wives had given them, they never gave it all in sadaqah. They ate Haniyam Maria, whatever they wanted to. So the practice of the Holy Prophet ﷺ shows that the Holy Prophet ﷺ wanted to spend anything that was given to him personally as sadaqah. So the Holy Prophet ﷺ accepted the gift given to him by Allah the Almighty for himself, for his children, but with the condition that later it will be then spent for the faith. So these principles, these laws will not be applicable in this case, and when we will debate the other areas where Shias differ, then we will discuss that in detail. Now Huzur says about Kalala, I have commented before what the scholars say. One of those descriptions is that a person whose son or brother or father is not his heir, he is a Kalala. If he is a Kalala, so the Holy Quran says that if he's a Kalala, if he has a brother or a sister, so that shows that the description given by scholars in that way is not correct. And then there is another description, that a person who hasn't got parents and who hasn't got children, that person is called Kalala. And this, from the light we draw from this verse, this seems to be the correct description of Kalala. Now, what was the understanding of Hazrat Abu Bakr? In Tafsir Razi it says Hazrat Abu Bakr said that a person who hasn't got parents or children, he is Kalala. And then he also says that Hazrat Umar used to say that Kalala is the person who hasn't got a son. But in this commentary of Imam Razi, he says, I do not want to differ from Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, that there are two views, that when there are no parents and no children, then Hazrat Abu Bakr had said that, and that was the view, he says, that I am more inclined to believe in. Huzur says, many people listening to the dars must be praying that let's hope all this inheritance subject is tied over very quickly. Huzur says, but they have a benefit. There was the time when in Qadian in Masjid Aqsa, when there were those commentaries, then children from school, whether they wanted or not, they were taken to the mosque to go and sit there. There was the Jamia Ahmadiyya students marching up there, arriving in the mosque. So they would be sitting there, and then gradually then their cap would drift on their faces, and you had to kind of peep and see that they were asleep. So it seemed that they were all just lying flat. But people were ghaira muzar, they were not unjust. They said, oh, these are children. When the dars was over, then they were woken up. So such commentaries where there are complex issues, then people are overwhelmed with sleep. But I have seen that there used to be people sitting here who were nodding off. They have moved elsewhere where I can't see them. In any case, they have this benefit that during this discussion, if they had stayed awake during the night, they can sleep during the day. Now there is a hadith that the one who deprives people of their inheritance, they will be deprived of Jannah, the paradise. So this is in Tafsiruhul Ma'ani. Huzur says this way of presenting a hadith, that also needs a lot of care, because in the commentaries, the reference which is given that this is from Anas or such and such person, and if the book is not being mentioned, then sometimes the reliable books have a slightly different report. And if they give that reference of the reliable books, then they find it difficult to make that statement, so they just make it into a generalization. So in the ahadith, there are some ahadith which have been relayed very carefully, and some have not taken, some reporters have not taken so much care. But this subject of human rights is very serious, very important. So to take such a report where there are some other meanings that can be taken from it, something which has double meanings, if that is the risk, then from the point of view of making the laws, it is very essential to sift it and to look at it very, very carefully, not only from the point of view of the report, also that who were the reporters. And if we don't accept it, this principle, then things will get very difficult and get tangled. Huzur says this hadith I am accepting because this is not making any statement which is against the Quran or the Sunnah. And this is my view, that anything which is making the same statement as the Holy Quran, and it's the same thing as the Sunnah, then you don't even need to research that, because why get into a debate that whether the reporter has said correct or not? If you accept it, this is the good thing. Now here, the advice is in this hadith that the one who will not fulfill the directive of Allah the Almighty and deprive the rightful heirs, Allah the Almighty will deprive that person of Jannah, because the Jannah, the paradise, is something that you have to earn, and you then will be given that. And the Holy Quran has used the word miras, inheritance, that you will inherit the paradise. And so what is said here is that if you deprive other people of their rights, then Allah the Almighty will deprive you of your rights. So this is a justice system mentioned. So if somebody was to make it up, it will not give anybody any other benefit. So now there's another hadith mentioned by these scholars that a Muslim will not be the heir of a non-Muslim and vice versa. This is Bukhari, this is Muslim. In both of them, Kitab al-Faraiz, the injunctions, and in both of them the difference is in these reports in Bukhari and in Muslim there is a very slight difference, but the meaning is the same, that the Muslim cannot be an inheritor from a non-Muslim and vice versa. And the scholars have taken it as a general law, and they say that here there is no mention of Darul Harab, that is a situation of war. In the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and in the statements by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, these words like Darul Harab have not been mentioned. And in some directives, something is said, and all the companions understood it. And these kind of debates were not picked up, that whether it is conditional or non-conditional. But I'm telling you, Huzur says, that the scholars have taken it as a general rule. As a result, the difficulties that raise their head, I will present them to you. Now, the difference of faith amongst people. Some scholars have overlooked both areas and they have just taken one area. That is not lawful when the Holy Prophet ﷺ said that neither a Muslim will be an inheritor from a non-Muslim and vice versa. Then there is a balance in there and a justice. Whether it is limited or unlimited, that would be discussed at some other point. But here in this statement, this is a beautiful statement and a just statement, that if a person, when the scholars say that if a person is a Muslim, he can inherit from the non-Muslim, but he will not pass on his inheritance to somebody who's a non-believer. Now that is not correct. Now for it to be meaning that the Muslim can inherit from the non-believers and the non-believer will not get anything, that is not correct. And in the light of these two ahadith, there is no such subject which is being mentioned, and it does not fulfill the statement that if one of the children is a non-believer, then they will not inherit. That is not what has been mentioned, while the scholars have made it a general rule. So they then have added various points in that. Nahlul Awtar says that we will take it as a general rule, and there will not be the debate that whether it is the occasion where there is a war condition, or whether there is a zimmi, somebody who has to pay tax to the state, being a non-Muslim. Now this is not the case here. But if you look at the war times, then different rules apply. So here it is wrong to put in the debate of wartime or non-wartime, because there are no factors mentioned here which would apply to wartime. Because when there are war times being mentioned, and the Holy Quran clarifies that, and the basis of that allowance is that if the enemy works in a certain way, then you can also retort. If the enemy attacks you in Baitul Haram, then you can also respond and retaliate. That verse, Azu said that I had noted down, إِمَّا تَخَافَنَّ مِنْ قَوْمٍ خِيَانَةً فَأَنْبِذْ إِلَيْهِمْ عَلَى سَوَاءٍ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْخَائِنِينَ. That now khiyanat, breaking of trusts, is unlawful, so you are not being given permission. But where the enemy breaks a trust or a pact and you were unaware and you suffered while you thought that you were at peace, and they attacked you when you did not expect that they will do that, then up to that point you can also break that pact. That they might think that okay, this is a pact, but they have broken the pact first, so you can also then retaliate. In the similar manner, Ambiz alayhim ala sawa is being mentioned, that sometimes it is the enemy which the act of the enemy then becomes the proof or the condition for you, that if there is a state of war and hostilities are on, and if the enemy is unjust, so you would think that the enemy has done that and broken the law of God and now we can't do it. No, you can retaliate equally. In everyday life, the Holy Quran says that Allah the Almighty does not like the expressions given to foul acts. Now, the outcry or to speak loudly about bad things, even if it is foul language or bad things, Allah the Almighty does not want you, does not like you to say it out aloud, except for a person who has been at the receiving end. Then you cannot deprive them of their right. They can themselves stop and not do that, and Allah the Almighty will think of that as a good deed. But the right is given that if a person is treated unjustly, they can retaliate just to that point. So Huzur says this is the shape of things that I can see here, that when a Muslim is told that he cannot inherit from a non-Muslim, it is also vice versa. And that is what the people of Makkah were doing. This hadith and the other hadith. With that, with regards to inheritance, we will further discuss these points when we go and discuss the points that the Shias have raised. Now here it is to be remembered that when the Prophet ﷺ went for Hajj, somebody asked that, "O Prophet of Allah, you have arrived in Makkah. Which house will you stay at?" The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "Aqil has not left any house for me. He did not say that I am a prophet and I had nothing. I don't take any inheritance." He said that Aqil did not leave me anything. That shows that those relatives who had not become Muslims, they were being so treacherous that they were depriving the Muslims of their rightful inheritance. So these directives have to be looked at against this background. Now, this was a situation where the enemy had been unjust. The Holy Prophet ﷺ could have said that, okay, we will not take anything from them and they will not get anything from us. Now, similar is the rule that if their wife becomes a Muslim and comes to you, then you have to give them the money they have spent on them. But if any of your wives goes to them, then it is essential that they give you the money back that you have spent on your wife who has left you. So where this element of wala nurasu, there another point to remember is that a child who is born before he becomes a prophet, how do people know that he will become a prophet? How would that child know that he will become a prophet? Would he say that I'm not going to take any inheritance because I'm going to be a prophet? So this is a very weak report. Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha report that when the wives of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, after the demise of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, when they decided that Hazrat Usman be sent to Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radhiyallahu anhu, that we demand our inheritance, at that Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha admonished, and she did not say that all prophets do not take inheritance or give inheritance. She said that our inheritance is not distributed. So that shows that the careful injunction here has been changed by people. But to say that we will not get any inheritance is against logic. Now, the second part of the debate the scholars have picked is that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, although he said us, what he means is himself. And this is a majestic way of address, that it is we. So that does not mean that the Holy Prophet ﷺ thought of all the prophets as included in this. The scholars, the Muslim scholars, they were compelled to say that because the Sunnis thought that the Shias were presenting a different viewpoint, so they were compelled, the scholars were compelled to then understand it in this way, otherwise they would have had to make it a generalization. You cannot remove the statements of the Holy Quran from the context, otherwise things will change. So it is essential that not as just the report, you have to reflect deep down into that statement, and if it is a historic point, then you have to try and understand, and you have to understand it in a way which would not be against the dignity of the Holy Prophet ﷺ and the glory that Allah the Almighty had given him, that is not compromised in any way. As I said, I will give you an example to explain this point. There is a hadith from Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, in that illness in which he died, during that illness he said to his daughter Hazrat Fatima that Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salam once every year used to go through the entire text of the Holy Quran. This year he did it twice, and he told me that every prophet has had half of the lifespan of the previous one, and Hazrat Isa alayhi salam had 120 years long life, so I will have half of that. So one element here is that the Holy Prophet ﷺ's life from the solar estimation of years was 60, and Jesus Christ, peace be on him, had 120 years life, and according to the lunar, the Holy Prophet ﷺ's age would be 62 and a half, and Jesus Christ's, peace be on him's life was 125. So we will keep the solar estimation in view, and as a report this has been accepted as a reliable hadith, then we will have to accept. So there will not be any flaw. The whole of the history of prophets would be turned topsy-turvy, because if Jesus Christ was before the Holy Prophet ﷺ, then there were so many other prophets in between. If you reach out till Moses, peace be on him, then Moses, peace be on him, would be 240 years. So whether you want to make it a Sharia law or against it or anything, it is not logical. And you cannot take this hadith word for word, but this is right that the Holy Prophet ﷺ's life was as long as was mentioned in this, and to say that Jesus Christ, peace be on him, was 120 years old when he died, and as far as the research carried out by Jamaat Ahmadiyya, that's proved true as well, because he came back, he was taken down alive from the cross, and then he migrated to Kashmir and lived there. But if you apply this to all prophets, then you have to look at this, that how the discrepancies will come in. There are 124,000 prophets, and if you do that, then you will have to continue to multiply it with the age of the universe, and then this would be the concept of the Vedas, that Vedas are old and ancient. Let me just speak excuse me, of 9 or 10 of the prophets, and you try and double their ages. So at the first step, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, 120, then the prophet behind him, 240, then 480, then the prophet before him, 960, then the one before, 1920 years, and then at the sixth step, 3,800 years. At the seventh, 7,680 years his age would be. So this would show that if you look at Adam, that even if there were just this many prophets, then you should look for Adam alayhi salam, because he was 6,000 years or so before us. But still there would be 1,680 years left of his age, and you should look for him. And why? You should not then take advantage of this. That why bring Jesus Christ back? Because Adam is still here. Because that is where Sharia started. So look for him if a prophet is needed. So these would become jokes. And prophets spoke of facts. And the most profound of all was the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So if you just get tangled in words, then you will not be loyal to the Holy Prophet ﷺ. You will actually be unjust and disloyal. So when I say that this is like an affront, you have to know that if you want to be loyal to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, you should stick to that, not get tangled in the words of a reporter. So this hadith, La nareso wa la nuraso, you have to then understand that in nareso, the Holy Prophet ﷺ himself was speaking of himself, nuraso, and nareso, that we neither inherit or nor give inheritance. Now, to the point to which Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anha commented, that was at the time of the inheritance being distributed, because the Holy Prophet ﷺ, she said, had called it sadqa. And she said we can take benefit from it during our lives, and all heirs then sent the message to Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu that we give up all our rights because the Holy Prophet ﷺ had said this. Huzur said I had put a marker there so that we will pick it up very quickly. Babu qawla Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam la nurathu ma tarakna. La narisu was not said here. This is from Sahih Bukhari. So from the point of view of the occasion, and also from the point of view of a strong report that it is backed up by the directives of the Holy Quran, then there is no room for doubt. Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anha reports that when the Holy Prophet ﷺ passed away, then his wives then sent Hazrat Usman to Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anhu. They were thinking of doing that. At that point, Hazrat Aisha Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anha said that, did the Holy Prophet ﷺ not say that we the prophets do not have any heirs? Whatever we leave behind is sadqa. So the word we the prophets, like I have said, all scholars are agreed that here the Holy Prophet ﷺ was indicating his own self, and because there is grandeur in this, the plural is mentioned, because he did not want to make anyone his inheritor. And about the sadqa, I have spoken before, that it is sadqa, even then the children of the Prophet ﷺ would use it. What he was saying was that I want to give this property as sadaqah, and where Allah the Almighty had allowed me to draw benefit from it, so like I did that in my life, it can be used by my family, but this is how I will use my rights given to me. As I said, besides that, we do not need any other point to cover here. Now we will go to the difference of faith. Now the ahadith that are mentioned here, Narisu Ahlil Kitabe. There's one hadith. Okay, let's start from the beginning. La yarithul muslimul kafira walal kafirul muslima. This is from Bukhari, Kitab al-Faraiz. That a Muslim will not become an inheritor from a non-Muslim. So this is also the way of presenting an injunction. So Rasul says, as I look at it, this seems correct to me, that a Muslim will not inherit from a non-believer. The situation is that a Muslim does not get the inheritance from a non-Muslim. Rasul says, if the words were slightly different, then a different meaning will be taken. Rasul says, now here, like you say that I take my words back, that was one possibility. But although the possibility is not something wrong, but the words do not allow you to be wrong in this. So the meaning would be that after today, that is, in the future, a Muslim will not get inheritance from a non-Muslim, and neither a non-Muslim, a non-believer, will get the inheritance from a believer. The second hadith says a similar concept, but the acceptance and equality is mentioned in more balanced words. An Abdullah ibn Umar, an Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam qala, Ahmad Dawood, Ibn Majah and Tirmidhi, they have all recorded this, that people belong to two different faiths will not get the inheritance from each other. Now this seems correct, but Ahlu Millatain are the words used, that if you think that it is a generalized statement, then it is not correct. Now which would be those Millatain? In the whole world, the inheritance is taken to the blood relatives, not to the faith relatives. When the Sahaba were getting the inheritance even from the non-believing parents, they took it when it was given to them. Islam was spreading, and everywhere, then it would be that every man would be rejecting the inheritance from their parents. While in Iran, it was that the children who became Muslims, they did accept inheritance from their parents. Huzur says the Holy Prophet ﷺ would not have changed the established history. He was so keen and so correct in all his statements than when in the whole world this would have become the law, so that people will not get inheritance if they have different faith. Where one people will deprive the others, then the others would have the right to retaliate. If you translate it in that way, that would be a very good, accurate translation. So you can translate it whichever way, whether illogical, or you can give it a point of wisdom, and every man in the world would bow their head in agreement. This is a general rule, that if one people deprive the other, then the others will retaliate. There is a hadith from Nailul Atar that Muawiyah is the reporter, that he said, we will get the inheritance from the people of the book, but they will not get our inheritance. Now this is contradictory to other reports, and it is impossible that the Holy Prophet ﷺ would have said anything like that, that we will neither take inheritance or give inheritance, and then to say that people behave like that. When people deprive another people of their rights, then they would also get retaliation. So to say that we will get the inheritance from them, but we will not give them the inheritance. While Huzur says in Pakistan, there is this law in place. They have overlooked very strong reports, but just to fulfill whatever was in their own mind, this is just the establishment of their own ego. It is the arrogance of the Maulvis that they want to bow the necks of the people in front of himself, not in front of God. Because if they wanted people to bow their heads in front of God, then they would have behaved differently. Now, the question whether it is an eternal law or it's just specific, in my estimation, Huzur says this is with regards to wars, because the Holy Quran has not deprived anyone, any children or parents or relatives, because of their difference of faith. There is the debate of who will get what, but because of the difference of faith, no one has been deprived. All rights are for humanity, so human beings are mentioned. This shows that this element of inheritance is a basic human right. If a person will deprive others, then he will himself be deprived of his rights. Beyond that, nothing else can be acceptable, because today, if this is the meaning you will take from it, then you will be at difficulty. If you overlook, na'uzubillah, the Holy Quran, the directive of the Holy Quran, because you think that it is contradicting the hadith, why didn't you take the stance of Imam Razi, where he said that I want to stick by what Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Radhiyallahu anhu had said? If you say that I will only believe in whatever is in line with the Holy Quran, that would be correct. They are saying this, number one, these kind of things, while in the Holy Quran there is no word to suggest that anyone is deprived of their inheritance because they do not have faith. Walidani for the men and for the parents, walidan and aqrabun are mentioned here. An-Nisaa, and then women are mentioned. Yusikumullahu fi auladikum, that about your children Allah the Almighty admonishes you. Again here there is no mention of a difference in faith. For the women as well, it is not mentioned that there is any difference you need to practice if they have difference of faith. If somebody is married to a mushrik or to a lady who is from the people of the book, why don't the Maulvis say that whenever you will take that, you will be outside the pale of Islam? They even go to them to take contributions and they sit there tight-lipped. Wherever Islam is spreading, there are rights of inheritance which are given, and wherever these people they have any source from which to get something, they will take it, and they want to deprive others. So whatever meaning you will take of the hadith, if it is contradictory to the Holy Quran, you will be deprived of good. Walikullin, Allah the Almighty has said here that each one is given their rights. There is no pointer here that whether they are believers or not. I will present the verse, the Quran, which sheds light on that, because a hadith cannot contradict the Holy Quran. When there are clear injunctions which are in line with the Holy Quran, then we will accept them. We will accept them with the meanings that which is not contradicting the Holy Quran. Instead of saying that we will just take the Holy Quran and we will not take hadith, that is also being arrogant, because there are correct hadith. As if, Na'uzubillah, the Holy Prophet ﷺ did not know of the Holy Quran. A person who takes that stance will have broken their bond with the Holy Prophet ﷺ. This is impossible. There is only one possibility, that you either reject that hadith to say that this cannot be a statement of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, or you look for those meanings through which that contradiction will be resolved and the meanings will be in line with the Holy Quran's directives. So Azuz says that is what I like, and I will give you an example that you have to understand the meanings of the hadith in light of the occasion. The Muslims were in war with the non-believers, and the non-believers were being unjust. So for the Holy Prophet ﷺ to have said this was in line with the Holy Quran because of the situation. If a similar situation arises, then it will be applicable again. Now listen to this. La yanhaakumullahu alallazina lam yuqatilukum fid din wa lam yukhrijukum min diyarikum an tabarru wa tuqsitu. Al-Mumtahina, verse 9. That when Allah the Almighty has said, do not become friends with these people, about these people Allah the Almighty has not given any injunction against those people who have not fought with you. What were you told? And they did not fight with you in matters of faith. وَلَا يُخْرِجُوكُم مِّن دِيَارِكُمْ, and they did not expel you from your houses. While the people of Mecca had fought because of the faith, and they had expelled the Muslims from their homes. So then Allah the Almighty says, Allah does not say that do not do good to them and do not be just to them, then when Allah the Almighty has said this, then to link the inheritance with faith would not be true, while the Holy Quran has not presented that at all. So the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the light of these verses, wherever there were injustices, the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave the permission in some cases when he saw that the enemy is continuing in their injustice. He said, okay, you can do that now. And then Allah the Almighty has said in Surah Luqman, verse 16, that if the parents fight you, if they are non-believers, but if they fight you, this verse shows that because of the difference of faith, even if the parents are mushrikeen, the difference of faith does not deprive those parents the rights. وَإِنْ جَاهَدَاكَ, that if they argue with you, while you know that there is no one who is a sharer in the singularity of God, if they insist on that, then don't cooperate with them. But in the matters of everyday life, in the social dealings, continue to treat them well, in a good way, ma'rufan, in a nice way. Wattabi. Allah the Almighty says that then follow the way of Him, be a kind companion to them in all worldly affairs, and in spiritual matters follow the way of Him who turns to me. So you can see how logical, how universal and humane this teaching is. Where is the point of depriving others of their rights of inheritance? Now here, as long as these parents are alive, the Holy Quran says about them as well that fulfill all their rights and be kind to them, lower your gentle arms for them. In those days, there were no old people's homes. Now in England, there are all those old people homes, you see. But up there, where would have those old people gone? So that is not the teaching. Because of the situations where it was so serious, where the non-believers were depriving the Muslims of their rights, where that was not the case, the Holy Prophet ﷺ never asked that you deprive them of their rights. Holy Prophet ﷺ has referred the matters in accordance to the Holy Quran, that those muhsanat, the women who belong to the people of the book, they have their rights. When you give them their ujur, you give them their dower. So those Jewish women or Christian women whom Muslims marry, their rights are established fully. And when such people die, whose wives are from the people of the book, to say that they will not get their inheritance, how are they being given their dowers here? According to the established rules of the Holy Quran, there is no hadith, no report that can be allowed to contradict it. So then all those hadith, all those reports are acceptable, that where the Holy Quran has given the clear-cut human rights, you have to remain within them. That where the non-believers treat you badly, then you can retaliate to that point. If they are depriving you of your rights of inheritance, you can deprive them of their right of inheritance, just in those cases. And the basic principle is that Allah the Almighty says that Allah the Almighty admonishes you to be just, that those you will break your relations with who are bent on murdering you, and they murder you, they expel you from your homes, or they help those who expel you. Antawallahum. They are the ones about whom Allah the Almighty has said, okay, you can suspend your kindness to them then, or your kind treatment of them, just to that degree. Huzu says there are just 2 or 3 minutes left, so we cannot do the next verse. Huzu says, oh, so there is still time. Okay, then you should tell me 5 or 6 minutes before. So the commentaries of the previous scholars were to be taken. As we have spoken of some of those points now. Is there any other point that we did not comment on? As says here, there is the other debate about making the will and the debt. Hazrat Muslim Maud says that at all these occasions, Allah the Almighty has said that first fulfill the will and the debt, so that has been given importance over the will, which has become generally established, and the debt to be settled is very important. It's been given priority here. So and then after that, after settlement of that, then you will do the other inheritance sharing. So whatever that person has taken as debt, it has to be returned. It does not belong to him anymore. It has to be returned to the rightful owner. And then the will is made keeping in view the rights of people. So that is why it is also said that first you need to settle that. Now this point, which has Muslim Maud made during a commentary, of course this point of the debt is quite clear. about the will, he said that wills are made keeping in view many rights and needs. So Allah the Almighty has given this right of the will, keeping in view a lot of rights. So why not that be given the first priority? Huzur says, in my estimation, the rule is, the same point comes to surface again and again, that Allah the Almighty has given a person the right over his ownership and has not given that to anyone else. So if it is known that they not make any will beyond 1/3 because Allah the Almighty has given the specific rights, so they are not affected. But in spite of that, the rightful ownership of a person is upheld as a right. So if a person has then made a will about somebody, that would be like a debt that was to be settled, that he says, I will give it to you, but you will get it after my death. So idatul mu'mini ka akhzil kafi, that when a believer says something, it is like fulfillment given in his or her hand. So Zu says that the right which will be relayed to a person later, that has not been given priority, that the person has first made a bequeath. He has made a will in favor of somebody. So first that will be handed over, and then the rights of inheritance will be dealt with. But here the question was asked, it was addressed to Hazrat Muslim anhu, that in the Holy Quran, why Allah the Almighty has first used the word wasiyatin, and then that first the will and then the debt. Then why has the will been mentioned first? Azu said, do you understand? Mubarak Sahib, do you understand? Azu said, it seems you are a little bit sleepy. In response, it is said that because the person who has to get his debt settled, he has a proof that he had given this and he needs it back. But then the person who has to get the will settled in his favor, he will have to prove it. Azu says, I don't understand this point. Azu says, the point here is that wasiyat, the will, and the debt, they have not been given any different kind of priority. They are both mentioned. It is not said that first settle the wasiya, the will, and then the debt. They have both been mentioned together, and as who says, in my estimation, the will was mentioned before because generally the Muslims did not die with unsettled debts. The Holy Prophet ﷺ disliked it so much that from a Muslim society it was not expected that they would die under debt, and in effect that did not happen. If the debt could not be settled by somebody, the Holy Prophet ﷺ used to do it himself. He would settle that person's debt. So this is one bracket, and this has not been mentioned in that order because of the order of priorities, neither in the settlement of will or of debt. What was to be given is mentioned as together, that first you settle the will, because the Holy Quran says you should make the will, and probably it will be applicable to every case wherever there is a will, but then first that is mentioned and then the debt is mentioned. So there is no matter of saying that which one holds priority, Zu says, okay? So we will do the rest later. Zu said, I had asked the research group to reflect on the case of Adam. Now, the point is that those people who twist the sayings of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, they need to find it. The Maulvis should go and find it. As far as our Jamaat is concerned, it's all resolved. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ is pleased with us and we are pleased with him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.